एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् अहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति। हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्तितो नाहं तत्तद्भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुत कुतो मदधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना ओहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। Namo Ramana to all. In this, the Thursday Satsangh from Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning. As usual, we will be referring to the work Guruvachaka Kovai by Muruganar Swamigal. We will be reading 2 verses from it. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that will be followed by a 10-minute practice of Atma Ucharana. After these 2 parts, these 2 verse readings, meditation on meaning and practice are completed, there will be summing up remarks by our President, Dr. Sharadaka, and that will be followed by the offering of Sri Ramanastotram. The mantras will be chanted by Vaibhavji and Pratnama. The flower offering will be by Manjunathji. We begin this evening's satsang with the first verse selected for us, verse number 625. This is from the segment Meditation on the Truth. The three segments being investigation, meditation, and experience. So this is the second, the meditation on the truth. Verse number 625. This is under the sub-segment, the fault of Anava. Anava in Tamil stands for ego in English. Anavam, Ahankaram is called as Anavam in Tamil. The fault of Anava. 625. The infernal hell, that is the supremacy of the ego, is a ruinous blunder, the cherishing of which is highly improper. Who else but the worthless will fail to abhor the face of that embodiment of evil, which should never be countenanced? There is a note from Padamale, Bhagavan, a life in which the ego boasts, which possesses desire and attachment, dances, is a desolate hell of corruption and ruin. The ego, which is the very personification of evil, is a great ocean in which all sins dwell together. The fault of Anava, the infernal hell, that is the supremacy of the ego, is a ruinous blunder, the cherishing of which is highly improper. Who else but the worthless will fail to abhor the face of that embodiment of evil, which should never be countenanced? Bhagavan, a life in which the ego boasts, which possesses desire and attachment, and their dances, is a desolate hell of corruption and ruin. The ego, which is the very personification of evil, is a great ocean in which all sins dwell together. So in Bhagavan's teachings, the search for evil, the search for wrong, the search for bad is not kept very far. It is within us. The source of all evil is within us. That is why when we transcend that, we are able to find the absolute, perfect peace and goodness of the self. So the evil is not outside, the evil is inside. In Ramanacentre, the Ahankara is said to be Angam Eri Ahangarithidu Anava Padubhaviyai Tunga Jnanaval Kondu Saduvi Tu Manichuda Ahi Neer. The poet sings to Ramana that the problem of the ego is of corruption. It breaks down into angams, into component parts, whatever we have, and then it climbs on to those component parts and claims as I. Angameri ahangarithidu. I see, I talk, I know, I am better. So what right you have to say I am wrong? All these start with the I. Now that is said to be the source. It is infernal hell. Inferno is the popular reference to hell, that it is built of fire. Now, this hell is the separation from the source, the separation from others. It is an optical illusion that we are separate from others. Even simply put, logically put, this body has evolved from smallest of bacteria. this language I am using as though it is mine has evolved through the software of consciousness and through the hardware of brain connections of neurons, even to the present knowledge, not going to the knowledge of the rishis. It is so clear that they are all interconnected. I am interconnected with not one past. All the scientists say now that because of this interconnection, it is clear we have been in this path before, they say. They believe in reincarnation more than the traditionalists now. We have been in this path and we are the way for cosmos to know itself, they say. But to feel separate, and as though this fellow Nandakumar is the one who is the repository of knowledge, is the one who is going to rule the next person. That is the inferno of hell, says Bhagavan. Forgetting that we are all connected by Bhagavan. Manigalil Saradana Uyurdorum Nana Madandorum Uruvanai Maruvinai Nidan Manikadaind Enamana Manaminum Kalli Maruvarakadaya Nin Arul Oli Mevu. That is Ashtakam. Manigalil Saradana Uyurdorum. In each living being, and of course non-living being, the Ishvara is the being consciousness, the self is the being consciousness, which strings all beings across many planes, up, down, side, and in directions totally unknown and unknowable to us. It strings everything together without knowing that I am just one infinitesimally small bead connected by that thread. If I claim some rights to myself, then I reserve the special inferno for myself, says Bhagavan here. The infernal hell, that is the supremacy of ego, is a ruinous blunder. One of the leaders of a huge Western nation was asked a question after retiring from his post as to what he considers to be the root of the racial problem. The problem that the white hates the black, or there is at least a significant aversion. Why is that? Was the question from the interviewer after the president had gone through 2 terms. So it's obviously not the color of the skin. Then the president said, I feel the problem is much more deep-rooted. Whenever 2 of us seem to be there, whenever we feel two human beings are there, we always want to show that we are greater than the other. So he had hit the nail on the head by pointing out that each ego has this feeling that it should have this one-upmanship. Many of the spiritual teachers who have taught that this one-upmanship is the root of all problems. Feeling separate and claiming rights and ability to do wrong to others. This is ruinous blunder that we make, says Bhagavan. The cherishing of this blunder that I am a separate entity and heaping laurels on myself, the cherishing of it is highly improper. Who else but the worthless? Now, the moment you drop that, labam ni ihapara, labam mil enai utru, labam en utrane arunachala. Bhagavan says, the moment the ego is dropped, the moment the manigalil saradi is realized, manigadai danamanam anamanam kalli, when we pierce that I thought with sadhana, then that thread lights itself and shows that I am he, I am the one, the thread, I am connecting everyone. Arul Oli Mevu, the grace which connects everyone, small to large, that grace rises and shines as the answer, says Bhagavan. Now, just the simple act of wisely recognizing that we can never be a separate entity in this whole interconnected universe, and with the grace of Bhagavan connecting everyone and letting go of that ego, he is going to merge us with that labam, with that thread. Who will do our work? What was considered as my work is now done by the thread. It was always done by the thread. I was falsely feeling that I was doing, but the moment the ego is erased, the thread is available. It has always been the thread that has been running the show. Only to realize this truth, one has to leave that blunder. If we don't leave that blunder, Bhagavan says we are worthless. Who else but the worthless will fail to abhor the face of that embodiment of evil? This separation from others and claiming that I have done this and I am capable of that is the root of all evil, says Bhagavan. So evil need not be searched outside. That person is evil. This kind of quality, hurting people is evil. No, he makes it very simple. The moment you feel separate from others, separate from the source, that is the source of all evil. This should never be countenanced. You should never stand for yourself, not against others. Not say that fellow is egoistic, this person is, oh, how ego is shining there. No, that is one's own ego. To find fault in another at any level is one's own ego arising. That's what Bhagavan says. Let that ego understand this and even make the lightest of sadhanas with Bhagavan's grace. It will start understanding. This is what Bhagavan means. That this is what Bhagavan means when he says in the dining hall, only whatever is served to others, serve to me. Only what you are capable of giving others, give to me. Don't make me special. Don't put one more Nartanga, I say. Somebody puts one Nartanga, one small pickle more. Says, what? How egoistic you are. Once you have got the ladle in your hand, how great you feel. How can you put this treating me as special? Treating me as special is putting me down, says Bhagavan. And with the help of these glorious teachings of Bhagavan, let us understand that feeling separate, rising as a separate entity, and carrying that bhavana out is the root of all problems. And one has to take that bhavana, the ahankara, the anavam, from its popular action of rising and occupying the various upadhis. Angameri, ahangaritidum, anava padubhaviye, tunga jnana vaal kundu sadvi. He has given us the jnana vaal of Atmavichara. With that jnana vaal, we have to cut the false ego and realize our true nature as the thread connecting everyone, and even beyond that, as having nothing to connect, and no thread is necessary. When there is nothing to connect, where is necessity for thread? There is the self alone that is there. The self alone is the teaching of Bhagavan. Till that is realized, one should practice with this jnana word, Atmavicharam given by Bhagavan. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit for practice of Atmavicharam for 10 minutes. Revathi, you will set the time for us. Namo Ramana. The next verse selected for us is verse number 834. So we proceed to verse number 834 and continue the satsang. This we find in the same segment as meditation on the truth, and the sub-segment is the greatness of renunciation. The greatness of renunciation, verse number 834. Only those who, regarding it as trivial, have renounced this world through a great heroism that does not even feel even a trace of fear, are assuredly the jnanis who are able to see the reality. I'll read that sentence again. Only those who, regarding it as trivial, have renounced this world through a great heroism that does not feel even a trace of fear, are assuredly the jnanis who are able to see the reality. All the rest are ignorant people who only perceive the false entities, the world and the body. Only those who, regarding it as trivial, have renounced this world through a great heroism that does not feel even a trace of fear, are assuredly the jnanis who are able to see the reality. All the rest are ignorant people who only perceive the false entities, the world and the body. So, in Drik Drishya Vivekam, Adi Shankara tells us that the Drishya is always false. One has to seek the truth only in the Drik, in the seer. So far as we are occupied with the Drishya, the seen, we are ignorant, says the verse. Because we find the same event happening before us. 10 of us define it, describe it in 10 different ways, according to our own mental proclivities, intellectual proclivities, belongings, non-belongings, shades of right and wrong. We each live in our own universes and see that same event happening in front of us in 10 different ways. This alone should give us the clarity that there is nothing in the event. A friend of ours used to deal with a person who was reputedly a troublemaker. So this friend also would constantly get into the nature of blaming that person, talking about him and all that. Then at one point, the investigation that the person made took her to this point where does that person's wife not love him? I have gone to their house and seen that there is a lot of camaraderie in that relationship. So it is not true that this person is completely bad. If somebody can see some good in him, then obviously the fault is in mine that I am not able to see that good. That way the inward turned attention started. But what Bhagavan is saying here is that not this alone, but take the whole world in one grip. That the seen world cannot have any truth in it, cannot have any kind of final answer in it. Sadhu Om Swami will say that Jagamelamu Irulmayam. That is, the world is nothing but a black hole, which even scientists are doubting these days that in the middle of the Milky Way, they have suddenly discovered a black hole. That the entire Milky Way may be in the center of a black hole. But those are all studies going on. But the ignorance inside us is much more palpable, much more vaster than the blacks that we see in the cosmos. Now, this entire cosmos, this entire world is the seen, and it is illusory that one stroke alone will allow us to turn inward. Even if one small area we have interest, a lady would come to Bhagwan, and in the talks she would be listening to Bhagwan, and Bhagwan will also be appreciating her. Yes, that is how we have to turn inward. And then at one point she will say, but there are a lot of colors in this world which are so attractive, but I think it is out of earshot of Bhagwan, and Bhagwan would say, yes. And Munagalji or somebody would clarify to Bhagwan, no, she is saying that there is a lot of colorful things in this world. Oh, then Bhagwan will say, no, that means your outward turn has happened again. That kind of talk is also there. That this falling into the ear of Bhagwan itself is happening like that, and then Bhagwan hears it correctly and then corrects. To that extent, the world is unreliable and the self alone is reliable. Therefore, one has to hold it in one grip and turn inward. That the answer, this is all Drishyam. There can never be any final answer in it. For whom is this world should be the quest. If we don't do like that, such a one is called as Dhira, says Bhagwan. Of course, those who offer the body in sacrifice for the country are called Dhiras. And tradition has it that those who offer like that are assured of a soldier's heaven. But Bhagwan is talking of that which is beyond hell, heaven and hell also. So here, the turning inward has to be not only by offering the body, but taking the summation of all the bodies together as the world, and without fear. When there is nothing in it, what is there to fear? So one has to turn inward. For whom is this? Even the slightest thought that arises, again, for whom is this? Because what is seen is actually only you. What is seen is actually only the self. Mistakenly, we feel that our shadow is what is having all the answers in it, and we go after the shadow. Whereas this world is nothing but a projection of oneself. And when we go into and hold that eye, there is great clarity that you have not lost anything, but you have caught hold of the essence and got and have been given everything by Bhagwan. Everything is there in the self. Venkateshji and I, we were discussing, and we came to the point that if I consider that Murugar, my family deity, has brought me to Bhagwan, and I hold on to that feeling that Murugar has brought me to Bhagwan, it is not an easy point to come to in one's life in sadhana. But even there, Bhagwan says, now both Murugar and Bhagavan are in the self. They are not two different entities to be treated as one as a means and one as a deliverer. Both of them have to be now identified with the self, and into that self one should merge. So that is the teaching of Bhagavan. Leave alone the dropping of the words which are insentient. Even when these great ones who have in one sense led us in our path, even they have to be fearlessly dropped and gone to the self. Because there will be confusion as to what is the role of Murugar, what is the role of Bhagavan. They are all not different. They are all only the Atma, only the self. And once we abide in the self, there we find the whole world, there we find the great ones. We clearly understand that all the great ones we can ever imagine are present in that self. Abiding in that becomes so easy. Where is question of fear? When you are one with all the great ones, what fear can be there? It's only easy resting alongside, as Kohan says, when Ganeshanana asks him, because he is having a feverish brain from which he is babbling something, Ganeshanana is afraid that that is his reality. He says, if this is the place where such a sadhaka like you has come, what is left for all of us? But Kohan makes effort and cuts through the blabber and says, what? Do you think I am the body or the brain? Both of them get damaged with time. I am one with Guru Ramana. I am one with the self. I am not apart from the self. And then he goes back to his blabbering. That is, the body goes back to the blabbering, but Kohan abides as the self. That is where Bhagavan is taking us, where a fearless dropping, it's not a taking on of dress and diksha to formally renounce. But what the formal sannyasis have to do, Bhagavan wants us to do without calling ourselves that. And he gives us the equipment for that. He gives us the Brahmastram for that. Because necessarily to reach the truth, one has to cross the Neti Neti Loka, where none of these words exists. In that Neti Neti Loka of renunciation, of tapas, of sannyasis and rishis, none of these words help. None of these words are present. But the Atma is present. And even when the blank, everything appears as blank, Bhagavan says, inquire, for whom is this blank? You are there. And till one abides in the self-luminous self, this Brahmastram will be there with us. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit for practice of Atma Ucharana for 10 minutes. Revathi, you set the time for us. Namo. I request our President, Dr. Sharadaka, to give us the summing remarks. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. Bhagavan has brought home to us the great sorrow that lies in being attached. In his Deepavali song, the same thing which he points out, being attached to the body. In fact, he says that this ego, trusting this ego and believing that it will help us cross the ocean of samsara is like trying to cross a river on the back of a crocodile. He uses that strong term. And he calls it the Naraka. Even in his Deepavali song, he says, the one who rules this is Narakasura, and he is killed by Narayana in the Naraka Chaturdashi. And a reference was made by Nanda Kumarji, Tunga Jnana Val Kondashadavir. And Narayana destroys his ego. And in his explanation to us today, Nanda Kumarji highlighted that aspect of the ego which finds fault with others. Bhagavan, of course, would not countenance anybody finding fault with anyone else. He would sometimes sharply remark, Kanakamma told me, sometimes he would sharply remark, Ni romba yogyamo. If anybody said someone else is to blame, he would sharply ask them, Ni romba yogyamo. Or else, sometimes he would joke. Once it was brought home to him that somebody was actually guzzling some money, some donations, but that person in the ashram was a favorite of Niranjanananda Swami, and others wanted to point out his mistake to Niranjanananda Swami. So once this person had hidden some money in a particular spot in the gentleman's guest room near the thatch. And this was discovered by others, and it was pointed out to Niranjanananda Swami, see, money is sitting over there near the thatch. And when Niranjanananda Swami looked questioningly at this person, he said, my God, I had kept it to give it to you. I think the mice or the rats have taken it and placed it there. And Niranjanananda Swami let it go. The information was brought to Bhagavan, and he laughed and said, very, very intelligent mice, very, very intelligent rats. So he would not find fault, says Kanakama. On another occasion, it seems he said, if I have come here, he said, I have come here to correct myself, not to correct anybody else in this world. I have come here to correct myself. If I start finding fault, even one black crow will not remain in the ashram. Meaning to say, which of us is there without faults? Even praising somebody else is part of our ego, because praise and blame are two sides of the same coin. However, there is a greater ego when we find fault with somebody, because in that instance, we think we are right and that person is wrong. So, Bhagavan says, as quoted by Shiva Prakasham Pillai, Thala thala nalamigum yendru thalvon padam vargave. Says, it is better to be more and more humble. And he also says, Arunachala, you have attained your glory. Melliyar சேர்ந்து மேல் மேல் தாழ்ந்திடும் மெல்லியர் சேர்ந்து நீ மேன்மையுற்றனையன் Arunachala. You have attained your great glory by being the humblest among the humble, he says. And when we are ready to renounce this ego, when we are ready to drop it and get into the mode of renunciation, as Bhagavan has told us in the second verse, as Nandakumarji said again, very sweetly, he brought home the assurance that when such a renunciation happens, then Bhagavan is there fully waiting to support us. This reminded me of one more instance narrated to me by Ganeshananna this time. And Ganeshananna said there were many lady devotees at Bhagavan's ashram. They were virgin widows. They would help in the kitchen. And I do not remember which one of them this incident refers to. It could be Shantama or Sampurnama. I'm not very sure about which one of them it was. But Ganeshananna told me she was staying in a small cottage in Ramananagar and he would visit her frequently. She was all by herself in her last days. She was quite healthy, but she needed help because she was old. And though she was a great sadhaka, he said she was a wonderful sadhaka, a great devotee of Bhagavan, but she was a terror when it came to servants. So I would send one ashram helper after another to help her, and they would all come back to me and say, "Yeah, send us to anybody except that lady. Please do not send us to that lady." Ultimately, there came a point when I could not persuade anyone to go and help her. So I was feeling very guilty. I did not even visit her for a week's time because I did not know what I would say to her if she asked me why I had not sent any helpers to her. But ultimately, I had to go to see her. And I went. And she folded her hands to me and she wept and said, "Ganesha, I owe you so much, I owe you." And I did not understand why she was saying that. And she said, "Ganesha, you did not send me any helpers." And I felt very, very lost. I felt all alone. And I thought, Ganeshan is also, he has left me. He has rejected me. Now I do not have anybody in this world to help me. I am all alone. And I was feeling so lonely and completely dejected. And then I wept to Bhagavan that I was all alone. And when I was in that complete mood of from dejection, when I went to surrender, without even my knowledge, in that complete loneliness, complete aloneness, when I wept to Bhagavan, then Bhagavan appeared to me and he said, "How do you think you are alone? Am I not there with you? Am I not there with you?" He asked. "Ganesha, because of you, I got Bhagavan's assurance. I don't need anybody. When Bhagavan is there with me, whom do I need?" She said that, and Ganeshananna said, a few days after that, she merged into Bhagavan. So that is the renunciation which Bhagavan brings to every one of us. These are external incidents, but internally also there are numberless incidents with the devotees where Bhagavan brings about the fruition, that renunciation which he asks us to make. When we make our little effort in that direction, his grace brings it to fruition. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Vaibhavji and Pratnama, we can start the chanting.
Yes, sir. यद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशये यस्योऽपि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदिचिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्वितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शूर्णशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणात्मिकाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईव्याय नमः। ॐ धूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलऋद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनिन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादकसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाबन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसाराणवतारकाय नमः। ॐ षोडादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शूद्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनाम्ने नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवश सादात्म्यभावङ्गतः निर्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा श्लोकान् पुनासेकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्घिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ। बोलो भगवान श्री